I'm Iain French. I'm a third year politics and social policy student. I'm the current sexual orientation equality officer, and I'm running for Vice President Student Support.
Brilliant, thank you very much. You've been president of LGBTQ+ Society before, but that does not mean you'll necessarily be a good VPSS. Other than being the former president of the society, what qualifies you for this role?
Well, I think having welfare experience on the SRC and working closely with Una Marie, the current VPSS, Liam, the last VPSS, and just knowing how to talk to students, knowing how to get out there and see what they need and see what they want, I think that would make me a good candidate for VPSS.
Thank you very much. You mentioned a lot about accessibility. Do you believe that Glasgow is a disabled-friendly university?
Yes, I think we are, but I think there's a lot more we could be doing to make it more accessible. So like making sure that all the events are run in accessible buildings, making sure that like more than just physical accessibility is thought about. So like people that may need accessibility breaks, like during an event, there's a quiet space for them, and just trying to improve like accessibility of buildings, accessibility just across campus. I think that's where we could focus on.
And you talk a lot about the kind of accessibility of buildings. Considering a lot of the buildings around Glasgow Uni are quite old and they require severe improvements to make them more accessible, do you think this is actually a realistic challenge?
I think obviously not all at once, but I think that we look at where the flow students go from and where like the main flow students are, and that's where we focus on first. So trying to improve it for the most students, and then we pick up like where we can. At the moment we pick that up in like a year or 2 years or something.
Yeah. You talk in your manifesto that you've worked closely with senior management before. Can you give me an example of this when you've had to do this in your current role?
Yeah, well, on the sexual orientation equality group, David Newell, the Secretary of Court, sits in that. So I've had to work with him to improve. We worked a lot on changing your name if you're a trans student, and like changing your details and changing that. So we had to work closely with him and with the Equality and Diversity Unit. And then just with like planning LGBT History Month, we had to work with him to get the flag up, to secure some of the events, and just coordinate around him what we want to do.
Brilliant. You talk about the transparency of council members. This is a bit of a generic term that's been pushed by multiple people and multiple people running things. Can you give us a concrete example of what you would do, and not only what you would do, but how you would ensure that students pay attention to this transparency? Yeah,
well, I think that transparency is, as you said, it's been spoken about a lot on a lot of people's manifestos this year and across the last couple of years. But I think that what we need to do is we need to make sure that students know what we're doing. So the SRC website has a blog area for like sabbatical officers and council members, and it's never really used. So I think using that and like the email system, student voice, like just going out there and talking to large societies as well and telling them what we're up to, why we're doing it, how they can get involved. I think just making sure you hit like every point of contact for students would be the best way to let them know what we're up to.
But on the same level as that, emails have been brought up in the past as being sometimes overly close to spam. How would you ensure that this, whilst you're encouraging transparency, you're not actually pushing students away by sending them too much information?
Well, I think maybe with the emails, like once a month before council meetings, just send out an email, this is what we're up to, this is what we're doing, just so it's not like constant. And even just like in the email, just say a couple of things, and then you can read more about it on XYZ blog post or something.
Great. In your manifesto you talk about gender neutral facilities, family friendly zones, prayer zones, and some quiet study spaces. Where are these going to be, and who have you spoken to about them?
Well, I think there's room for them in the campus right now, and then in the campus redevelopment, if we focus on making sure there are gender neutral facilities, there are study spaces, there are prayer zones, there are family friendly zones. I think I've not spoken to anybody currently about them, but I know that Una Marie worked quite a lot on these areas over the year, and I know that it's something that could be brought forward and could be worked on more.
will you do anything to ensure that things like gender neutral facilities and more accessibility is a priority for the university during their campus redevelopment when things like study spaces are already really scarce?
Yeah, well, I think that they should be a priority. Like, they should all be a priority. There shouldn't be one put ahead of the other. But I think that gender neutral facilities, they aren't difficult to put in. It's not like you don't need a specific gender neutral toilet to have a gender neutral toilet. Like, it's when we were talking to the GUU a couple of years ago about getting gender neutral toilets into their building, they thought that they had to get a whole new toilet, do it all up, spend money on it, but it's literally just taking off a gendered sign and putting on a gender neutral sign. So I don't think that would be a big difficulty in the campus redevelopment.
Brilliant. Your competitor in this election says she invests time and money in things like suicide prevention training and bystander intervention training, for example. You don't mention these in your manifesto. Why?
They just didn't come up when I was writing my manifesto, but they are important points, and 500 words is not an awful lot to write everything that you would want to focus on, and they are of course important points, and if I was elected I would work on the already established work and I would help to bring them forward.
Great. And finally, what are you going to do to support students who are parents?
Well, students that are parents, if they have like young dependent children and they need to like go into university to hand in an essay or print off an essay in the library, having like family spaces in the library would be a key thing. And I know that Elliot Napier, the current age equality officer, has just secured this in the library, so I think promoting that and promoting that this is a thing, you can do it, and there's a support out there for you, and if they needed anything else to come to the age equality officer or myself or a member of the advice team to see how further we can support them.
Brilliant, thank you very much.